The International Labour Organization ILO says Africa cannot grow beyond the quality of our labour force. A high-quality labour force will contribute towards labour productivity growth, which remains low in Africa and remains a major challenge for enterprises, innovation, and competitiveness. To change this narrative, Africa must do everything to create the many jobs needed to provide the millions of youth looking for work, decent work, every year. Skilling, reskilling, upskilling, and lifelong learning are some of the keys to improving the quality of the labor supply. Africa is currently the world's youngest region. Young people under 25 years old constitute 60% of the population. By 2030, almost 1/5 of the global labor force and nearly 1/3 of the global youth labor force will be from this region. So, how do we make these figures count for something? Ordinarily, this huge youth population should be an advantage. But because of the failure to manage this strength, the asset is turning to a demographic disaster. Today on your program Policy on Track, we shall deepen our discourse on job creation, a panacea to today's crisis of unemployment, especially among the youth population in Africa. In this package, I will bring you an interview I had with the Executive Secretary, African Youth Commission, Kosu Sila. The commission represents 46 African countries. The Executive Secretary told me that the many opportunities being claimed to abound in the continent do not translate into economic empowerment. Rather, it leads many youth to migrate in search of greener pastures. You don't want to miss today's edition for any reason. My name is Mohogbone Wilkie, your host, and you are welcome. Africa is currently the world's youngest region, with its 1.3 billion inhabitants, largely young and energetic population. The region is home to a labor force that is a little over 500 million strong. However, by 2030, the labor force will have grown to 676 million, a staggering 40% increase, driven by the rapidly growing number of youth labor market entrants. On the flip side, Africa is the least industrialized region of the world, with the lowest value addition in manufacturing. Most African economies are still, to a large extent, primary sector economies, where extraction of natural resources and farming are the key drivers of GDP creation and employment. Low returns of labor and land in agriculture is a major cause of working poverty, especially in sub-Saharan Africa. In North Africa, the youth unemployment rate is more than 30%, with over 40% accounting for young women, which is higher than anywhere else in the world.
After more than 50 years of independence, there are still many questions to be answered about the development of Africa. Africa is still looking for an appropriate development model to stimulate economic growth and real social development, which are the basis of national development. Most of the development policies which have been implemented since independence have not only contributed to keep the continent in a state of dependency, but also to marginalize it from the rest of the world. Unemployment, informalization of the labor market, and poverty remain a reality for many people in Africa, especially young persons. Some 255 million people are working but poor. Approximately 54.5 million young people are not in education, employment, or training. The ILO has been pivotal in the promotion of employment to the people of Africa. The Director General of the organization, Guy Ryder, the first Director General in the organization to visit Nigeria during the Global Youth Employment Summit held in Abuja, said failure to provide a space in the society and the world of work for young people would constitute and does constitute a challenge to the very welfare, sustainability, and stability of all countries.
Around the world, 255 million, I will repeat the number, 255 million young people are not in employment, nor are they in education or training. These are the so-called NEETs. Young women are 3 times more likely to figure amongst that number than are young men. So we must ask ourselves, what is their future to be? Included in our labour markets or excluded? A lost generation in formation. And with young people typically 2 to 3 times more likely to be unemployed than other adults, even when they can find a place at work, it can often be in extremely difficult conditions. Conditions which fall short of the ILO's ambition of decent work for all. And think of this, another number. 136 million young people are working, they're often working extremely hard, and yet they are still living in poverty. These are the working poor, and in Africa, that is the status of 60% of young workers, often concentrated in conditions of informality and in the rural economy. Failure to provide a space in our societies, in our world of work for young people, would constitute and does constitute a challenge to the very welfare, sustainability and stability of all of our countries. None are excluded.
Informality is pervasive, involving 85% of all workers and 95% of young workers. Low productivity agriculture remains the main sector of employment for most workers. A determined and systematic approach will be required to set in motion a range of measures to put agriculture on a path of dynamic growth.
In Guinea, what we are trying to promote more and more is to get our young people to specialize in certain skills. University is not necessarily the answer for everyone. Everyone cannot just get out of university with what we call those big diplomas or those general fields that have been so popular back in the years. Guinea is a mining country. We have a lot of technical jobs and works. There are a lot of things that can be done by young people if only they are turned, they are guided to get to learn those technical work jobs. So there's also agriculture. We talk a lot about agriculture, but we like to say, and this is something very popular that people say now in Guinea, that agriculture is becoming sexy. More and more young people, when they think of agriculture, they just don't think about, oh, I'm going to go to the field and go and work the land, but they see the potential of it. It's creating jobs. It's creating jobs, but it needs to be organized. So one of the things that the private sector is doing is also lobbying, working, and asking the public sector to take its responsibilities to create the context so we can have even the schools, the technical schools that are there to help our young people learn those skills that will help them find jobs tomorrow.
Africa needs to supply high quality and highly skilled labor to the rest of the world and to enterprises in the region. For this to happen, innovative ideas on skills development, public-private partnership in education are required. No doubt, education and training in Africa have seen major improvements in recent decades. However, there is room for improvement in the area of purposive skills development. Another area that needs to be focused on is the promotion of youth entrepreneurship and self-employment in order to harness the extraordinary energy and talents of young people. In my interview with the Executive Secretary, African Youth Commission, Kosu Sila, a commission that represents 46 African countries, he told me that the high level of youth unemployment is a key driver of migration within the continent, as well as to countries outside the region. Kosu goes further to say that policies crafted for the youths are really not smart enough, as youths are not represented in the process. If you ask me, inclusion is very important, as you don't shave a man's head in his absence. Isn't that what they say? I just want you to share with me the experience of the youth.
Okay.
We know that in Africa, youth unemployment has reached the ceiling. The ILO gave us frightening figures.
Yes.
And is on the increase.
Yeah, the figures is alarming, and I think for me as a young person, so it means a lot for me. What I've been hearing from the young people over the years in my interaction with them, all of them are saying, okay, there are a lot of opportunities exist out there, but it's not actually translating to the economic empowerment of young people. Okay, I'm employed. But after the employment, what next? So the salary attached to the employment is not actually something that is motivating young people, and this is contributing a lot in terms of getting young people into a lot of criminal activities, but also moving from this continent to other part of the world in search of a greener pasture. For me, I think that's something that we need to tackle, and young people as well, we have a stake in it. So we cannot leave everything in the hand of the government because they cannot do it all. So young people also have a stake in it. So for me, our education gives us that opportunity to be able to not only rely on government or other job creators, but also be as innovative as possible to be able to create jobs for ourselves. Because, if you want to rely on government, they don't have the capacity. Maybe they may have the political will, but the capacity is not there to be able to create the amount of job needed for all this huge amount of young people that exist in our African continent.
As a youth representative, what is it that governments are doing that they are not doing right? Give government advice at this time.
So I think for me, job creation in the side of the government requires a holistic approach by engaging young people, interacting with young people, knowing their interests, but also knowing what type of skills or jobs that these young people actually want. And I think in the past days, I used to advocate for quality education, but nowadays I reduce advocating for quality education. I have a quality education, but it's not actually giving me the opportunity to be in the place where I want to be. So I think maybe what we should start advocating, or what the government should start thinking of doing, is to actually transition the education from quality to more of relevant education. Skills that is required in the recent labor market, so that young people are able to gain the necessary employment.
As a representative of youth, one thing that we found out is that employers complain of policy, of skills mismatch. Lots of graduates are churned out every year, but they are not employable. What is your word? One, for the youths that you represent.
Now, if you look at the labor market, people are actually moving from those kind of 19th century's jobs to more of smart jobs that are maybe easily done by a use of new technologies. So I think skills like ICT or skills like maybe graphic designs are highly demanded in the labor market. I think those are the things that young people need to go in for. Those kind of skills are the ones that young people need to go in for. Actually knowing what skills are marketable. You cannot be learning skill for the sake of, okay, let me just go, and because I'm sitting idle, I'm not doing anything, let me just go and learn. Maybe my friends are doing carpentry, or my friends are doing plumbering, or my friends are doing welding, let me also go and do that. No, it doesn't work like that. But what skills are actually needed in the market? I think those are the things that you need to find out, so that you are able to align yourself based on that skills. At the end of the day, when you acquire those skills, when you graduated, you can easily transit from classroom to labor market.
But the government in Africa, every one of them appear to be saying that agric is the solution. Agriculture is the solution because it is labor intensive. Do you agree with this?
I quite agree, but not the traditional way of agriculture. If we really want young people to consider agriculture as maybe a pathway to their economic empowerment, I think agriculture should be um, beautified. It should, it should be able to attract young people. We should find a way of making agriculture mechanized, so that we will move from just merely production or consumption, but something that maybe we can do in large scales, be able to even export, to outside world. I think for me that is very key. It's not the traditional way of doing agriculture. That way we will not be able to have the interest of young people to go for farming, but it should look sexy, or something that is lucrative.
One, we see that lots of youths embark on perilous journey. What does this signal when you see young ones dying in the Mediterranean in the search of greener pasture?
It's very, very sad, but I think there is something behind that is actually bigger, or maybe that is actually even um, more harder, because I cannot imagine myself leaving my country just to embark on this small boat or canoes, and at the end of the day I know maybe I may risk of dying in this journey. But I think something hard back home that is pushing them, and that is for me, if you look at it, is the political will of the government. Sometimes it's also political tension that is also existing in the country, but also corruption, because funds that are supposed to be used to create employment opportunities, to create quality education facilities, or to create health, are the ones that usually our politicians grab for their own personal use. So at the end of the day, our young people lost hope in this. So I think we need to address that. We need to address the issue of corruption. So we need to make sure that our economic systems are able to give our young people the hope so that they can stay back home. They are not living because of, okay, maybe I don't have food or I don't have friends that I will mingle with, but they are living in search of better economic opportunities. I've interacted with a lot of them. If I ask them, why are you living in Africa? They will say, because I don't have opportunity. Even I'm employed here, at the end of the day, I cannot afford a bag of rice for my...
That will be our package for this week. Let's do it again when next I come your way. You can continue the discourse with me by dropping your thoughts on any of our social media platforms showing on your screen. I am Mo Wilkie. Bye-bye.